Yehoshua Perek Aleph Pasuk Yud. Now that Hashem has given Yehoshua his marching orders, now it's time for Yehoshua to start telling the people what to do and leading them. So the first thing is, he has to prepare them for the crossing of the Yarden. So Pasuk Yud, Vayitzav Yehoshua as Shoterei ha'am lemer, Yehoshua commanded the Shoterim of the people as follows. Shoterim are, in the system that the Torah sets up, you have Shoftim v'Shotrim. Shoftim are the judges, they're the ones who lay down the law, and Shotrim are the ones who enforce it. So it would include, for example, a person is summoned to Beis Din, then they're the ones who make him come if he doesn't want to. It would include that if Beis Din hands down a judgment against somebody, and let's say he's not willing to pay or whatever, then they would be the ones, the Shotrim would be the ones who take the property from him to satisfy Beis Din's judgment. So in that sense, they're more like bailiffs in a court system. Their job is also in general to enforce the law, in which sense they're more like police. And their job is also, when there are announcements to be made to the Jewish people, they're the ones who announce it and have to see to it that it's being enforced. So those are all their roles. So now he's telling them that you're going to be informing the Jewish people. He continues in Pasuk Yud Aleph, Ivru b'kerev ha'machne, circulate around throughout the camp, v'tzavu es ha'am lemer, command the people as follows, hachinu lachem tzeda, prepare for yourselves provisions. Ki ba'od shloishes yamim, because in another 3 days, atem ovrim es ha'yarden hazeh, you are going to be crossing this Yarden, lavoy l'rashes es ha'aretz, to come and possess the land, asher Hashem alekeichem nosen lachem l'rishta, which Hashem your God is giving you to possess, to inherit. So you've got 3 days to prepare, he tells them. Now, when was he telling them this? On the day when they ended the mourning for Moshe. The Pasuk tells us at the end of V'zos HaBracha that they mourned for Moshe for 30 days. So now he's telling them they have 3 days. Later on in Perek Daled, we're going to say that they crossed the Yarden on the 10th of Nisan. So therefore, 3 days before that brings us to the 7th of Nisan. And if then the 30 days of Moshe's mourning were over, then that brings us back to the 7th of Adar. And that is in fact how the Gemara derives that Moshe passed away on the 7th of Adar. So now that the 30 days of mourning are over, then they've got 3 days to prepare, and then they're going to cross the Yarden. What kind of provisions is he telling them to prepare? Food they have, because the mun stopped falling when Moshe passed away. So it stopped falling on Zayin Adar. However, later on in our book, in Perek Hay, we're going to say that they had mun until the 16th of Nisan. So the Gemara explains that the mun stopped falling on Zayin Adar, but they still continued to be able to eat it until the 16th of Nisan, about 40 days later. So even though usually you couldn't leave mun overnight and it would spoil and it would turn wormy, but here, specifically the mun that fell on that last day, on Zayin Adar, they continued to have for over another month. So therefore, Rashi points out they don't really have to prepare food. They have their food already prepared. So rather, Rashi explains that the word tzeda means the other kinds of provisions. For example, they need to make sure that their weapons are in good working order. They're going to be soon fighting battles to conquer Eretz Yisrael. On the other hand, the Radak and some of the other commentaries say it's not necessary to say that. The fact is they had other kinds of food as well. Besides the mun, there were different caravans and individual traders and Bedouins and so forth who in the desert where they could buy food from. They're also now at this point they're camped right near the land of Moav, so they can have individual Moavi traders and merchants can be selling them food. So that kind of food is what they have to prepare to make sure that everything's ready for the crossing. Now Yehoshua has another piece of unfinished business to deal with. Back in Chumash, in Parshas Matos, 2.5 of the Shvatim, it was arranged that they're going to live on the east side of the Yarden, which is where the Jewish people are camped now. Shevet Ruvain and Shevet Gad and half of Shevet Menashe, they had a lot of animals, a lot of cattle, and a lot of sheep and goats, and the east side of the Yarden was particularly well suited for raising such animals because it had a lot of grasslands. So those Shvatim, the arrangement had been that they will have their territories on that side of the Yarden, but they're going to first go across the Yarden and help the Jewish people conquer Eretz Yisrael. So now, Yehoshua is going to remind them of their promise. The Gemara has an expression, Ein mezarzin ela b'shas ma'aseh, You remind a person of what they need to do when it's time. So even though Moshe had confirmed this with them beforehand, that was a few months earlier. Now it's time. It's about to start taking place. So therefore, Yehoshua needs to reconfirm it with them and make sure that they're still going to fulfill their obligation. So the Pasuk Yud Beis, V'lo Ruveni v'la Godi v'la Chatzi Shevet HaMenashe, Shevet Ruven and God and half of Shevet Menashe, Omer Yehoshua Lemer, Yehoshua spoke to them and told them, Pasuk Yud Gimel, Zocher es hadover, remember, and Zocher means more than just remember, it means constantly remember, constantly be mindful, es hadover, of the matter, Asher tziva eschem Moshe Eved Hashem Lemer, that Moshe, the servant of Hashem, commanded you, saying, Hashem Elekechem meniach lochem, Hashem, your God, is giving you rest. And he's giving you this land, the land that we're in now. So you already have your territories mapped out, and you don't even have to fight for them, because they're the lands that used to belong to the kings Sichon and Og, and they and their armies were wiped out, and you've taken over these lands. So you already have the peace that the rest of the Shvatim do not have yet, because they haven't conquered their lands yet. Therefore, as is going to continue in the following pasuk, you have the responsibility which you had accepted on yourselves to go and help them conquer Eretz Yisrael. The Malbim has an interesting point here. He says that all of this happened before Hashem had spoken to Yehoshua. So Yehoshua at that point didn't know for sure that Hashem is going to be at his side every step of the way in the conquest. He thought to a certain extent they're going to have to use natural means. So part of those natural means is to inform Shevet Reuven and God and Chatzi Shevet Menashe, they were powerful warriors. Be aware, we're going to need you to lead the army in conquering Eretz Yisrael. And then he continues in the following psukim, reminding them of the details of that.